Hey everybody, and welcome to The Year Was, a podcast all about today. I'm your host, Michael Montalvo, and together we take the history train back in time once again to discover what makes today truly unique. For the next few minutes, we continue to gather random nuggets of trivia to make you sound smart, or just drop that little fact that makes others stop and say, hey, who invited you? Like, seriously, why are you here? On this episode, we examine the events that occurred today, July 10th. Now, I will have edited this part out, but for 2 weeks now, I have mistakenly said June instead of July. I am stuck in that month, and I don't know how to get out of it. But on with the episode. The year was 1856, and on this day, the inventor and showman Nikola Tesla was born. Now, as we all know, Tesla actually invented a teleportation machine for Robert Angier. But who was he? Born in Smiljan, Croatia, to an Orthodox priest father, Milutin, I'm saying that wrong, and a schooled but intelligent mother, Duca, Tesla was the fourth of 5 children and had 3 sisters and one older brother, Dane, who was actually killed in a riding accident in 1863. The death shocked and unsettled Tesla, who was reported to have begun seeing visions, the first signs of lifelong mental illness, and he later claimed that on the summer night that he was born, during a lightning storm, the midwife said, "He will be a child of the storm," and his mother's reply was, "No, of the light." As he matured, he showed a remarkable imagination and creativity, as well as a real poetic touch. But what's kind of interesting is that as a teen, he became really sick and only recovered after his father gave up on the idea of Tesla becoming a priest and instead go to engineering school. As a student, he studied math and physics at the Technical University of Graz and philosophy at the University of Prague. And in 1882, while on a walk, he came up with the idea for a brushless AC motor. And later that year, after withdrawing from school, he found himself in Paris repairing direct current power plants with the Continental Edison Company. If that name sounds familiar, it's because that's Thomas Edison's company. After 2 years of this job, he immigrated to the US on the advice of the United States manager of the French branch of the Edison Company and his desire to meet the man himself. Arriving in June of 1884, he took up a job at the Manhattan headquarters, and after working there a year, he had impressed Edison with his diligence and ingenuity. In fact, Edison once told Tesla that if he could solve a series of engineering problems and improve the design of his DC dynamos, he would receive $50,000 in compensation. After months of toying with the design, he had a solution, but ultimately he was told, "You don't understand American humor." Needless to say, he left soon after. After a couple of unsuccessful jobs, he got backers for his research into alternating currents, and in the 2 years from 1887 to 88, he was granted 30 patents for his inventions and even spoke at the American Institute of Electrical Engineers, where he caught the eye of George Westinghouse. Westinghouse hired Tesla, gave him a lab, and licensed more patents, but here's where the Tesla-Edison feud, the War of Currents, really began to heat up. In 1890, Edison arranged to have a man on death row be put to death with an AC-powered electric chair, an attempt to show how dangerous the current could be. Now, that's really just one of the many things that happened, but that's going to be more of an episode into itself. In the 1890s, Tesla befriended Mark Twain and took a photo of the writer in one of the first pictures to use phosphorescent light. Throughout this decade, more inventions such as electric oscillators, meters, improved lights, and the Tesla coil were made. Something of particular note, however, was that he began his research into X-ray during this time. It isn't clear, but he and Edison may have worked together in this venture, with Edison writing, "Tesla is of a nervous temperament, and it will greatly grieve him and interfere with his work," while Tesla gives vent to his sanguine expectations when he should not do so. It must not be forgotten by Mr. Moore that Tesla is an experimenter of the highest type and may produce in time all that he says he can. These experiments were dangerous, however. Edison was nearly blinded, and it resulted in the death of his assistant, Clarence Daly. Don't talk to me about X-rays. I'm afraid of them. I stopped experimenting with them 2 years ago when I came near to losing my eyesight, and Daly, my assistant, practically lost the use of both his arms. I'm afraid of radium and polonium too, and I don't want to monkey with them. In 1895, a fire destroyed his lab, his notes, and his prototypes, and in 1898 at Madison Square Garden, he displayed a remote-controlled boat, but many people thought it to be a hoax. He had made and demonstrated the first radio communications 2 years before Marconi lit the 1891 World's Fair in Chicago and partnered with General Electric to install AC generators at Niagara Falls, creating the first modern power station. It's hard to write this and not just list the amazing series of accomplishments Tesla made throughout his life, just one after the other. Now, after the fire destroyed his lab, he relocated to Colorado where, as previously mentioned, he met Robert Angier. Now, that's a joke. It's from the movie The Prestige. He didn't actually meet him. And this guy doesn't really exist as far as I know. But he did go to Colorado. He returned to New York 2 years later and secured backing for a global communications network centered on a giant tower at his lab at Wardenclyffe. However, funds ran out, and J.P. Morgan, the financier, balked at the idea. He spent his final years in a New York hotel feeding pigeons, working on new inventions as his energy and his mental health faded. He was obsessed with the number 3 and fastidious washing, which I guess just means he wanted to be very clean. He died on January 7th, 1943, and later that year, the U.S. Supreme Court voided 4 of Marconi's patents, belatedly acknowledging Tesla's innovations in radio. He was, if nothing else, an interesting person. Having a photographic memory, he once claimed that he saw detailed pictures of his inventions in his mind before ever constructing prototypes, and as such, he didn't prepare drawings or plans for many of his inventions. He never married and claimed that his celibacy was an important factor in his creativity. It had been theorized that because of his nearly fatal illness as a teen, that he feared germs, and was the reason he was so strict on hygiene. In 2012, a fundraising campaign led in part by Matthew Inman of the webcomic series The Oatmeal was created to save and preserve the Wardenclyffe site. They succeeded, and in 2018 it was listed on the National Register of Historic Places. In 2013, Northern Imagination organized a Kickstarter for a statue of Tesla to be erected in Silicon Valley. And what's particularly cool about this is that it emits a free Wi-Fi, as well as houses a time capsule to be opened on January 7th, 2043, the 100th anniversary of Tesla's death. Now, I wouldn't be able to forgive myself if I didn't mention this next bit because it has something to do with the previous entry for this podcast. The year was 1830, and on this day, Camille Pissarro was born. Known as the father of Impressionism, Pissarro was a French Impressionist painter and contributed to Impressionism and Post-Impressionism. He was born in Charlotte Amalie, St. Thomas, and throughout his life he sold few paintings and had less than enthusiastic reviews for his art. He participated in the Salon des Refuses and experimented in neo and romantic impressionism as well as pointillism until his death on November 12th, 1903. And that's going to do it for us today. If you're listening to this on your podcast app of choice, you can actually find a YouTube exclusive video at the Apple Cider Club, which throws my outro completely off because now I don't know how to really go and say any of this. But to give us a like, give us a comment, and if you want to subscribe, that'd really help me out. If you like the podcast and want to hear more, give us a rate and a review. Lets me know what direction to keep this going in. And hey, share it with a friend. They might like it if you... that sounds weird. And hey, if you liked it, share it with a friend. They might like it too. You can find me on social media and at YouTube at the Apple Cider Club. As always, oh my god, this is terrible. And as always, I want to thank the Tim Kreitz Band for our musical theme and to thank you for listening. We'll see you next time.